Okay, how to survive your first ultramarathon. Now, if I think back to my first ultramarathon, I was in a place where I'd done a few 5Ks and 10Ks. I didn't even know ultramarathon existed. I thought the distances only went up to a marathon. So I'm in a pretty good place to give you advice on how to survive your first ultramarathon. And this is what I did, and these are the mistakes that I made. I'll talk you through it now, but I'll give you my top 3 advices for surviving your first ultramarathon. Now, by ultramarathon, essentially, we're talking about anything from 50K upwards. And usually, although there are flat ultramarathons, flat 50Ks, flat 100Ks, the likelihood is that you're probably going to be running in the mountains, which is up and down, undulating, and there'll be some flat bits, and maybe the surface changes, off-road surface, it's maybe technical, and it's maybe flat on tarmac as well. So how do you survive your first ultramarathon? So I remember getting this message on Facebook asking me whether I wanted to do 50K uphill in Granada in the south of Spain. And I literally thought, I couldn't believe that somebody would, first of all, be able to run more than a marathon. I really didn't believe this, and this is 2010. I didn't understand that people could run in 40-degree heat and more, 40 to 45 during that day. And there was also the altitude to play with. So I didn't know how my body was going to cope above 2,500 and 3,300 meters, which the race went up to. So my target for that race, and I was training in Sweden, the flattest country you can imagine, my target was just to fly over there, get there 2 weeks before the race, and try to survive the race and try to to finish the race in less than the cut-off time, which was 8 hours. And the way that I did that is I Googled and got everybody's piece of advice. I messaged people on Facebook to say, hey, I know you're a long-distance runner, an ultra runner. Can you give me some advice? What do I need to do, etc.? And everybody's pouring information in to you, which may or may not be right. It's kind of opinion-based. This is an opinion, but it's sort of backed up by 10, 15 years worth of experience, 10, 14 years worth of experience. The number one thing that you need to get ready for is the distance. So you need to gradually improve the long run. And that long run, to make your training schedule as efficient and effective as possible, and hopefully optimize the success, is to emulate in that long run the course. So for me, it was uphill 50K. So those long runs would be, first of all, 1 hour uphill, slowly, but gradually uphill, and I had to do that on a treadmill. For you, if you're doing an ultra race and it's out in the mountains, then emulate the course. So find a path that's up and down, be doing some uphills and downhills. You can do this on a treadmill. Find a treadmill that's got the downhill function as well as the incline function. Super important because you want to emulate as closely as possible race day conditions. Now, I couldn't emulate the heat, but I could turn the AC off in the gym and make it a little bit hotter. So my body was almost used to it, but running in 40-degree heat, you'll never ever get used to it. So that was the first thing, to sort of get used to the long run and get my body used to going uphill. So working on the power muscles, the glutes, the hamstrings, and also doing some cycling, which is great for uphill running. Then what I had to learn, and had to really learn, not just in the race, but to train towards this, was to get my stomach ready to take in the carbohydrate that it needed. So at the time, again, this is 2010, for me, it was to take a gel every 40 minutes. And so I hadn't run a marathon yet. The 50K uphill was my first ever time running a marathon. All what I realized is that I needed to calculate how long I think I'm going to be out there. 8 hours I thought I was going to be out there. And how many gels do I need to carry? So 1 every 40 minutes divided by 8 hours. But I need to get used to having those gels, and for not just to take them in, but to get them into my stomach, to metabolize them, and to get them as energy into the muscles. The muscles are not going and hitting the wall. So if you're out there in an ultramarathon, your glycogen stocks and supplies in the liver and the muscles are not going to be enough to carry you. You're going to need to rely on carbohydrate in order to fuel you being out there for 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10, 12 hours, however long you're going for. So it was super important for me to take a gel every 40 minutes and to get used to that. Now, what I've learned is I can take way more carbohydrate. So don't learn from me in 2010, learn from me in 2024. Now I'd be taking not 37.5 grams of carbohydrate, but 80 grams of carbohydrate per hour. So how do you do that? You need to get your stomach used to doing that, whether it's carrying a camelback, if you maybe you're running in a race, an ultra race that requires you to carry a camelback, and that's part of the regulation. Get used to carrying the camelback. You don't want to do all your training without a camelback, and then all of a sudden it feels super heavy because you've got 2 liters of water, which is 2 kilograms, which is going to cause you all sorts of problem in terms of you feel like you're carrying extra weight, you're slower than you were in training in your long runs, but also everything is off about your body. You're running in a different way if you kind of if the camelback is not feeling right on you. So get used to that as well. So be doing as many of your runs with the camelback on, even your easy and recovery runs, so that feels as comfortable as possible on race day. So in terms of the carbohydrates, if you're getting up to 80 grams, don't start at 80 grams, otherwise your stomach is going to get all sick, and you're not going to be able to take it in, and you're going to have problems. So start at 40 grams per hour and gradually work up 50 grams, 60 grams, 70 grams. It's a very quick learning curve, and you will be able to take in 80 grams. And for you, it might be optimal to take in 100 grams or 60 grams, but learn your sweet spot. And the only way to do that is on your long runs. Always do it on the long runs, taking exactly what I take in, Morton, any drink during my long runs and in my interval sessions. I want my stomach to feel comfortable, whether I'm running fast or far. I want it to feel comfortable to be able to absorb that sports drink or gel, be able to use it as energy during my race. Super, super, super important. So it's nutrition, it's your ability to go far, and so you're building your stamina, your endurance with your long run, but it's also, in order to survive your first ultramarathon run, especially if you're from a place where you're working long hours, you're trying to get in your training when you can, you're trying to go somewhere where it's slightly undulating if you're going to be doing a hilly race, on the weekend to do your long run, you've got to condition your quads. Your quads have got to be used to going downhill. You can easily, in an ultramarathon, you're not going to lose so much time by power hiking uphill. So get used to doing that on a steep gradient. If you have to go in the gym, put it on 10, 15% in order to hike upwards at 4 or 5 kilometers an hour, do that and do it with your camelback or whatever you need to wear in the race. But in order to start to run that, you can gradually sort of run at slower speeds and see that you can actually run at 6, 7, 8 kilometers, even up a gradient of 10%, and it doesn't feel that much harder, and you're gaining time. But to condition the quads, only way to condition the quads is to run downhill. And again, like anything running, start small. And so start with 1 minute repeats running downhill at something like a gradient of -3, and then -5, and then -6. Because if you hit a long downhill in the race, if you've got a long downhill that's anything more than 10, 15 minutes, you're going to really feel it in the quads. And there is nothing that will stop you easier than a cramp or dead quads, where you literally cannot move forward because your quads are that dead, because they don't feel that pounding running downhill. There's no other way that you can emulate that. Not in the gym, not on the bike. It has to be running downhill. So condition the quads, get used to running downhill and get them to a point where you can run 10K downhill, no problem at all. Nutrition, super important. Aim for 80 grams of carbohydrate, but find your sweet spot. And then the long run. Make sure the long run is emulating your race day as much as you possibly can, so that you can focus on racing that race and enjoying the day, not just trying to survive it. If you've got an ultramarathon coming up this year, or if you're training towards something and something's missing, please let me know in the comments below and I'll try to help you.